great day, and thank you for watching.
Hopefully these go better. I'm smashed before 1 on these games. I cannot believe that this game destroyed me. I can. Why did I get involved live? That's on me, not
That
you.
is on you.
All right.
That's on you.
You didn't have to run up the score. I said it was on me.
It was on you.
Right.
You just didn't see the writing on the wall. Knee it! Let's get out of Dodge!
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Can I get an ISO? Come on. Give me the ISO over here.
Give
right
me the
here.
ISO. He wants the camera.
Look, I'm going to get nice and comfortable right now. I've been telling you people out there, yes, you people, about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. My connection to the Irish growing up as a kid. I hated that team. But they called me at the network the most unbiased man here, which means I'm giving you the information straight from the mouth here. You don't have to go anywhere. You get it from me.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
You're looking at Joe Burrow being the guy that I was in on the beginning of the year. Clearly, that is no longer an option. So where are we looking on this board? And I keep landing on the same thing, which is, Baker Mayfield's been kind of the story this year. Think about this. He's plus 950 for MVP. They look like right now one of the, if not the most formidable team in the NFC.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I apologize to our fans. We need to do better. That's all you need to say, Scott, right? But Tua goes out there, my kids love me. I'm rich. I don't care. You got your dumbass coach coming out here, and we play to win. You got to win the game, and you got to win. And, the Dolphins press conferences make it way worse. If I was a Dolphin fan, I just want to punch these guys in the face.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Penn State to pay $50 million buyout by firing James Franklin. Plus, who does Penn State hire to replace him? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us as each and every weekday we're chatting the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have the latest on the WNBA CBA negotiations, but first, let's dive into the shoot-around.
Yeah, indeed, and let's start with Mark Sanchez, Renee, as the Fox NFL broadcaster was released from an Indianapolis hospital and was booked in process for his felony battery charge, that following a violent incident where he is alleged to have attacked a truck driver while intoxicated. Now, speaking for the first time, Sanchez told reporters, quote, "Right now, I'm just focused on my recovery," and he didn't answer any questions about the incident. Sanchez is due back in court in November, and he faces up to 6 years in prison for that felony charge, Renee.
Yeah, he also added he's just focused on healing, recovering, and spending time to connect with his family, his son, his 2 daughters, his wife. And the bigger picture, when you look at how this has all played out with the lawsuit that now Sanchez and Fox are facing, as well as also just Fox having to figure out next plans for broadcasters, they haven't released a statement regarding this since that October 4th day of a small statement they released. And since then, we've seen them replace Brady Quinn stepped in that day following in Indianapolis. We've also seen Mark Schlereth filled in this past weekend. So Fox is figuring things out, but for Mark Sanchez, straight from the hospital to the booking after getting released.
All right, meanwhile, NWSL Commissioner Jessica Berman was given a 3-year contract extension, this to continue to run the Women's Soccer League, according to The Athletic. Now, while terms of the deal have not been announced, it's reported the vote of Berman's extension was not unanimous. Now, her contract would run through 2028, which is notable as NWSL's current media deals would expire a year prior, Renee, in 2027.
Yeah, so Jess Berman's contract was expected to expire in the upcoming months, and there are some sources that reported, according to ESPN, they didn't feel like this was the right time to shake things up and have any sense of instability or have to do a turnover in terms of leadership in the NWSL with the direction they've gone.
Right.
Now, remember when Jess Berman came in, that was back in 2022, following the crisis around sexual assault allegations and abuse allegations by players in regards to coaches. She's helped tremendously in terms of helping to negotiate a $240 million media deal, helping the valuation of teams go from $5 million to about to over 250 million in a few years. Being involved in the new CBA, which helps with player safety, just so many components. So although there's been some issues around heat policies with the Kansas City owners or the collapsing of Savvy King for Angel City, she's been so pivotal in the growth of this league. I think it makes sense, and we'll still wait for those details, but makes sense to keep her, to keep that stability as they're making progress.
And of course, you have the Women's World Cup here in the United States in 2031 as well. Well, the NBA returned to China for the very first time in 6 years. This with a pair of exhibition games over the weekend between the Suns and the Nets that drew a sold-out crowd of over 22,000 at the Venetian Arena in Macau. Now, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the trip is a start of more trips to the country, as 8 more matches are set to happen in Macau over the next 4 years. Mavericks owner Patrick Dumont said that the Mavs and the Rockets will play in China next year, and that's important because Patrick Dumont is the chairman of Las Vegas Sands, who is big in Macau as well.
Yes, lots of ties to China, and I think for the NBA, they've been trying to repair those the damaged relationships since Daryl Morey's tweet back in 2019 around anti-government policies and protesters in Hong Kong. It's been a slow crawl back in, but I know Adam Silver did also mention, as you touched on, wanting to do more. This is just the start of what the NBA is hoping to do more of. They've also just recently announced a partnership with Alibaba, a Chinese tech company that's going to be implementing some AI and some cloud-based technology for fans in China to access NBA games. So trying to partner with the right people, trying to get the right teams out there. But I know, as Mark Tatum was mentioning, who is the NBA Deputy Commissioner, just talking about this is one of the largest fan bases in the world.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Hundreds of millions of fans in China, with 300 million people playing the game of basketball in China, and so they want to be right there in the mix of all of it.
Yeah, even Michael Porter said that, next to the United States, China is the biggest market of NBA fans, but I think you were spot on in sort of this delicate sort of relationship. Even geopolitical parts play in this as well, with President Trump and his relationship with China, that the NBA has to sort of tiptoe on this very, very delicately because of all the geopolitics.
But it's promising to see 2 exhibition games between the Suns and Nets get sellout crowds like that. It's a great sign for what the future can hold.
Well, after their 3rd straight loss and falling to 3-3 this season, Penn State fired Coach James Franklin with a buyout of nearly $50 million for the coach. That would be the 2nd highest buyout in college sports history. So why was now the right time for Penn State to move on, and who might replace Franklin? Let's take a look at that and so much more in today's main event. All right, let's bring in Adam Brenneman. He's a college sports analyst for CBS and, of course, former Penn State tight end. He also hosts the podcast Next Up with Adam Brenneman. Adam, good to see you as always. I mean, you played for James Franklin at Penn State. I guess just your initial thoughts to his dismissal here.
Shocking would be the first word that comes to mind. You think about where this program was just 3 weeks ago, actually less than 3 weeks, 3 games and 2 weeks ago. And Penn State was the number 2 ranked team in the country in playing Oregon in a whiteout game. Things spiraled fast from there. And yesterday, which was Sunday, Penn State announced they fired James Franklin. Ultimately, in this era of college football, I think it was the right move by Pat Kraft, the athletic director. I did not think he would make the move when he did, but ultimately Penn State was not competing on the field very well, lost 2 inexcusable games to UCLA and Northwestern. It felt like that Coach Franklin had lost the locker room a little bit, that there was a lack of belief. And when that happens, you got to make a move quickly or you risk losing the fan base. And I think Pat Kraft earned a lot of respect from Penn State fans for doing what he did, but that doesn't change the fact that James Franklin, as you said, Baker, I played for him. James Franklin did an incredible job at Penn State and was there for 12 years, took this program from the darkness of sanctioned and really not a lot of winning that was happening for a while to now a perennial power, one of the top programs in college football. He's built the program so well that having a couple losses and being 3-3 after all this success gets you fired in the Penn State that we now have in 2025.
Yeah, Adam, when you look at the bigger pictures, you mentioned with those 3 consecutive losses, they also lose their quarterback, and Drew Aller, who's out for the season with an injury. Since the firing, you've also already heard of some of their top recruits have decommitted, including the #1 running back in the class of 2027. We've seen large buyouts in the pros, but what does it say about the state of the Nittany Lions, but also college football, that we're seeing this $50 million buyout happening, as you mentioned, so quickly and now?
Yeah, Penn State being willing to pay that $50 million buyout shows you the risk of losing momentum in your program. The risk is a lot more than $50 million if Penn State falls from one of those top 5 to 10 programs in college football. the $50 million feels like a drop in the bucket if you end up not being in the top 25 and you're not recruiting at a high level, and season ticket sales go down and the donors stop giving money towards NIL. So I think it's a calculation that goes into everything. The actual details of Coach Franklin's buyout have not been released, as far as a lot of these buyouts do have offset clauses where if a coach gets another job, the buyout goes down based on what the coach is making somewhere else. But Penn State's a program that has support with a lot of donors and a lot of successful alumni that want to see this program win. And I just saw Penn State Athletic Director Pat Kraft just had a press conference, and he said there's no shame about it. We are here to win a national championship, and we'll do whatever it takes to win a natty. So I think to all of us, that $50 million buyout sounds like a lot, but when you start losing games like to UCLA and Northwestern, and the fans are stop showing up to games, it doesn't feel like such a big buyout to pay anymore.
Well, is it too late for Penn State to salvage something of this season? I guess my bigger question is why fire Franklin now? I get the 3 losses, but is there something here for Penn State really to salvage for the rest of the year that they had to do this right now?
Yeah, I think number one, there was a part of a decision by Pat Kraft to say the best decision for the rest of the season was to move on from Coach Franklin. There's no other way to put it than just that things had gotten toxic around Penn State football. I mean, Penn State had lost to Oregon, failed to win a lot of big games, and then to lose to UCLA and Northwestern, who Penn State has a miles better roster than UCLA and Northwestern. Should never lose those games. It's clear, and I think was probably clear to Pat Kraft, that a change had to be made to salvage this season, to give some new life to this program. The second piece is it does give you a head start in this coaching search. I mean, the Penn State job will be the best head coaching job on the market. There's other programs going after head coaches, and Penn State wants to make sure that they are the leader of the pack and can start working towards finding their next head coach. You are going after a very small list of the big dog coaches in college football, and Pat Kraft is going to need as much time as possible, as much support as possible to make that hire happen. It's going to be the most important hire Pat Kraft has made in his career.
Wow, really interesting. All right, we got a lot more on Penn State and James Franklin with Adam Brenneman coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Shedeur Sanders will be starting for the Browns by week 9. I am buying this. Absolutely. At a certain point, Joe Flacco just not the answer. We know they already made the change. Dylan Gabriel is starting this week. We know that. But maybe a team needs a quarterback, and they're willing to trade for Joe Flacco for some level of stability, and then we simply get nothing out of Dylan Gabriel. He is a rookie quarterback when it's all said and done. Maybe there's just no production from him. So why not just move on to a different rookie quarterback that you have just to see what you have? And then, as you mentioned over the top, you have to evaluate going into next year's draft. So I will absolutely buy this.
The next 4 weeks, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Miami, New England. I mean, the question is this. If they truly believe that Gabriel could be a future starter, you got to give him more than 4 weeks, right? That's 4 weeks is not enough. Minnesota, that's a rough game, all right, being played with England this week. Pittsburgh, they haven't a defense. Miami is not very good. New England's supposed to have a good defense, hasn't here. I'm going to sort of go. I mean, I think Shedeur Sanders is going to start at some point this week. I don't think it's going to be by week 10, although that does make sense here to name him the starter during the bye week, get him 2 weeks here. I'm going to go more, maybe double digits, week 12, week 14, somewhere around there. Because I want to give Gabriel a longer run. I think Gabriel might do some damage here against these lesser defenses here. So I think give him a longer runway here. That being said, I do not think Gabriel is the long-term future of this team. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback at all here. I think he's a number 2 at best here. Sanders could be a number 1. I have doubts about him too. I think Sanders has a better shot. So by week 9, by week 10, I'll sell that. But if you were to give me a couple more weeks, I would have bought it.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado, and our continuing conversation on James Franklin and Penn State here.
Yeah, Adam, let's get right back into what you're just talking about regarding what's next for Penn State. As you mentioned, tough shoes to fill. This program's been built so much around James Franklin during his tenure, but still falling short on getting to that national championship level. Who do you think is the best fit to replace James Franklin, and what type of coach also would be the best fit?
Yeah, it's a challenging situation for Pat Kraft because when you move on from a guy like Franklin, who, there's only a handful of head coaches who have won as many games as Franklin in the past 4 years. And it's Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning at Oregon. This program has been one of the most consistent in college football. Won 2 playoff games last year, was a couple plays away from the national championship game. So when you move on from a coach like that, you're not hiring some up-and-coming young coach. You're not getting a guy from the group of 5 to come to Penn State and see how he can do. You're going after someone who has proven that they can win championships, and that list is not very long. I think a guy who's got to be at the top of the list is Kirk Cinetti, the current Indiana head coach, who's shown that he can win at a high level in the Big Ten. And with more resources, what could he do at Penn State? I think Matt Rule will be a name that comes up continuously in this conversation. He's the head coach at Nebraska, Penn State alum, played football at Penn State. He's close friends with Pat Kraft, the athletic director at Penn State. They were together at Temple when Rule was the head coach there. The question about Rule will be the same thing that plagued James Franklin, is can he win the big games? His record against top 25 teams has not been good in his career, especially at Nebraska. So can Penn State get past that? But Matt Rule fits that mold of a Penn State guy who knows how to build a program. The wild card in this is a guy like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer hasn't coached for a while, but is probably the best head coach on the sidelines right now in college football. He won national championships and is a great program builder.
And the buyout a lot cheaper on Urban Meyer than it would be for a lot of these other coaches if they're interested as well. Let's go back to James Franklin. Obviously, you mentioned all these openings that are out there. There are a lot of good ones. Where do you sort of see him going next? And what does he sort of bring a program in this NIL era that we're living in right now?
And make no mistake about it, James Franklin will be the hottest name on the coaching carousel this cycle. He is one of the best program builders in college football. He took Vanderbilt from the laughing stock of college football to a contender in the SEC. He built Penn State to where they are now, a program that has been so successful that they fired their head coach after losing a couple games. And again, remember the time that he took over Penn State. It was after the sanctions and the loss of scholarships and a lot of turmoil and negativity. Has done a really good job. There will be a lot of programs that want James Franklin. I think the top one that comes to mind is Virginia Tech. He would be a great fit there, a Northeast guy who knows how to build in that type of area. The community, you could say, has some similarities to Penn State, a great history and tradition, but hasn't won in a long time. I think Arkansas is an interesting job for Coach Franklin. Coach Franklin's been rumored and been tied to the Florida job in the past. Before they hired Billy Napier, there were rumors that Franklin had interviewed for the Florida job before, but ended up staying at Penn State. So those are some of the initial jobs. I'll say this too. If you're Coach Franklin, do you take a job right away? Do you go into media for a couple of years and refresh? He did. I know Coach Franklin well. He looked like a guy who had been worn down after 12 years at Penn State. And I think he had frustrations on his side as well about maybe a lack of appreciation that he got for the job he did at Penn State. So we'll see if Franklin wants to get right back into coaching. If he does want to, there will be plenty of suitors who are going after his services at a high level.
A lot of changes ahead for the Nittany Lions. Adam Brenneman, good stuff as always. Adam, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Adam Brenneman, of course, CBS college football analyst and former Penn State tight end, and of course, host of the podcast Next Up with Adam Brenneman. Well, Franklin was just one of 3 coaches fired over the weekend, with the buyout so far at $90 million that we've counted. Let's bring in FOS reporter David Rumsey for more. David, good to see you. So let's talk about the latest on who was fired and a lot of these buyouts that we're seeing that are pretty large here.
Yeah, Baker, Renee, thanks for having me on. And absolutely, the money is flowing, not in a good way because it's teams underperforming and firing their coaches. So obviously, James Franklin generating the headlines of nearly $50 million. That buyout was kind of a discussion ever since that loss to Oregon that they had earlier this season. But yeah, the buyouts for 7 FBS coaches fired since the season began have now totaled actually a little bit more than $93 million. So that's not quite as much as the record from in 2023, which reached $118 million by the end of the season, but it's certainly up there and way more than last year, which was only $36 million or so, even including some firings after the season.
Yeah, and David, around these firings, I've heard the programs talking about recruiting, scheduling, some other issues that maybe were at the core of this. But one of the big things that jump out, you have James Franklin with Penn State fired and the buyout around $50 million. And some other schools, such as Pac-12's Oregon State's Trent Bray, coach fired for a $4 million buyout and a $2.4 million buyout for AAC's UAB coach Trent Dilfer. How much does this point to a product of the growing gap and pressure also in college sports?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. Just look at how expensive it is to fire somebody who's a top tier Power 4 coach at the Big Ten like James Franklin, and how relatively inexpensive it is to move on from somebody else. Even for Oregon State, like you said, Pac-12, which just a few seasons ago was in the Power 5, and now they're, in that maybe group of 6 that we're calling it now.
Yeah, the other thing I'm fascinated with is obviously these bigger schools, like let's say Georgia, Kirby Smart, I believe his buyout is $100 million. Lincoln Riley at USC is $90 million. Is this going to be basically the thing we're going to see in all these contracts from now on, are these massive buyouts, but then it's a risk for the school because if the coach doesn't play well, then you're on the hook for $50 to $100 million then?
You're absolutely right, Baker. And really, at the top end of the highest tier of college football coaching, you're making $10 million plus a season. I mean, even Bill Belichick and Deion Sanders, who are struggling to win games for the most part, are making $10 million. And maybe that's just because of their name brand value. But yeah, 10, 11, 12, $13 million a year for these big SEC and Big Ten coaches. James Franklin was making $8.5 million a year, but they're guaranteed for so many years. I mean, these top coaches now are guaranteed into the 2030s, and they're always re-upping their contracts. And that means that those buyouts are going to be, like you said, 50, 60, even up to $100 million. And hey, good on the agents for getting that secured value for their clients.
Yeah, obviously, when coaches are let go, typically it's around they're not producing on the field. But do you get a sense that with NIL, with other aspects that have really come into the college sports landscape, that there's other components as well that might lead to this becoming the precedent for schools to consider taking a buyout?
Well, there certainly is more and more pressure to win, especially when you don't have the excuse of, just missing on a recruiting class or something like that. I mean, you have the transfer portal, like you're saying. Now you have revenue sharing, NIL. So if you are a school with so much money on the outside, whether it's your collective or your boosters, and obviously the $20+ million of revenue sharing, like we said, there's no excuse to not be performing on the field.
Just crazy, the numbers and all of us and the money out here. David Rumsey, thank you, David, as always. And coming up next, everyone, we got the highest rated WNBA finals in 25 years. That plus the latest in the CBA negotiations, all ahead.
At some point this year, next year, states are going to ask for Kalshi to be taxed. And I think they're going to have to pay taxes if they continue to operate in this space. Specifically, the state of Pennsylvania is looking and saying, hey, our sports books are paying us tax money every month to do the same thing you guys are doing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Question, where's the $100,000 going? Like, am I going to give it to Amari DiMercato as an apology? It does give us a little bit of insight, though, into that moment. Like, I wondered what Gannon had said to DiMercato there. It obviously did, cost Arizona a football game in a division that they cannot afford. But that is an interesting one.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Are we going to sit here today and acknowledge that the Indianapolis Colts right now are the best team in the AFC?
They are right now.
They can run the football with Taylor. They got a competent quarterback the way he's playing right now in Daniel Jones. They are well coached.
They never punt.
They never punt.
They never punt.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Let's start in the Atlantic, where the New York Knicks are minus 250 favorites to win the Atlantic Division. Philadelphia 76ers are plus 490, Boston 8-1, Toronto 13-1, Brooklyn 25-1, and it could be 250,000-1. They're not winning the division.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the Aces are WNBA champions yet again as Las Vegas won their third title in 4 years. Plus, we're hearing new intel on what the max salary for the WNBA and what they're offering players in the ongoing CBA negotiations. So let's get the latest from our women's sports reporter, Annie Costabile. So, Annie, good to see you as always. You're back from Phoenix from the WNBA Finals. Just your initial thoughts. Yes, you are. So, initial thoughts on the fact that we got the highest rated WNBA Finals in 25 years, even though it really wasn't that close.
I know, a clean sweep by the Aces, but the numbers, I think, speak to obviously the growth we've seen over the last 5 years in the WNBA. And so obviously, even despite the sweep, people are tuning in to see these stars like Asia Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, Kalia Copper, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Jewel Lloyd, like the list goes on. And so seeing those numbers despite the sweep, I think reflects, again, what we've known is that the WNBA is on an upward trajectory.
Yes, finally we get a 7-game finals, and we only need 4 to get a champion.
True,
but
yes.
You talk numbers. There's some other numbers that are concerning that we're hearing as we now look ahead in terms of CBA discussions, because I know, Annie, you've been heavily following and reporting on this, that sources have indicated that the initial negotiations did not have any sort of supermax that included more than $1 million in terms of contract deals. What are those numbers? What's the latest on the CBA talks? Because it seems like every week we're asking and we're still getting a little bit more information, but not closer in that regard.
Yeah, so there's a lot on the table here. Obviously, this is just the latest proposal, and what we know about negotiations is they go back and forth. And so this is just where negotiations currently stand. That does not mean this is where they will conclude. And as we've had indicated to us by players, they are not content with where things currently stand. So that the fact that the salaries are not yet at $1 million, the supermax in year one. So let's clarify that as well. Is those numbers are in direct reflection of what they'd be in year one. So even though we are not yet seeing a 1 million supermax contract in year one, that doesn't mean that negotiations won't lead to that number being hit. Again, the deadline is coming up on October 31st. But we know that it's likely going to require an extension to get a deal done. And so the fact that these numbers are out there right now, one could assume that they will be negotiated and reach a higher point.
Well, I think the number I think that was the most interesting in all of this is the floor. So the lowest, the veteran minimum, would be about $300,000, which seems like a really big jump right here, given the fact that the highest paid players in the WNBA are making far less than that. So wouldn't that be classified as a huge jump, at least from the league standpoint?
Yeah, I think we got to be careful the way we characterize the improvements in salary and salary structure, right? Because the WNBA the union is negotiating from behind the 8 ball. Their supermax currently is about $240,000, and their veteran minimum is about $78,000. And so you want to acknowledge, sure, the incredible jump that's being made currently. But the union has to be strategic about this and make sure that they're negotiating for the future, not just for a significant bump in the present. And I think that's why there's a little bit of maybe not confusion, but questions about, oh, well, why wouldn't this be perceived as a great offer? Why aren't we acknowledging that this is a significant jump? It is, but it's about the longevity of the contract and also that revenue sharing component, right? Because if they don't get a substantial revenue sharing number, well, then I was told within a few months, they would be behind the 8 ball again. So I think it's more so a point of emphasis on the longevity of the contract and ensuring that the union and the players are taken care of throughout the entirety of this contract.
Yeah, that's a key point to clarify, Annie. It's not just about right now, it's about looking in the future to which numbers make most sense for the league.
Well, of course, Annie's going to be on top of this for us. Our women's sports reporter, Annie Costabile. Annie, thank you as always. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, Tiger Woods says he underwent his second surgery in 13 months, his 7th on his back alone. This after tests discovered compromised spinal canal that has caused mobility issues for him. Now, Tiger did not mention how long he would be out and if he would be able to play in the PNC Championship with his son Charlie in December. He's only played 15 times in the last 4 years and hasn't played since the PNC Championship last year.
Yeah, and I know we talked about on the show early September when he was seen publicly hitting for the first time since rupturing his Achilles back in March, and it felt like Tiger Woods was working back, as you mentioned, to compete again. So now another setback with his back, and it just makes you wonder, realistically, will we see Tiger Woods golf again? I know there's been discussion of him trying to play in the Hero World Challenge and other tournaments. I don't know. This might be the end for Tiger Woods.
I hope it's not. I mean, look, if he could come back from that car accident and at least play that he did, you still have to hold that hope that he's got it.
Fingers crossed he can.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Renee and I are back for way more fun tomorrow. We'll see you later.